again. This is the Creatures of the Night podcast, and I'm Chris.
And I'm Wendy.
There we go.
What are you drinking there? That is in like a black can.
It's a new Truly. Have you not seen this?
No.
This is a lemonade. It's a hard seltzer lemonade. It's strawberry lemonade.
Oh, I love strawberry lemonade.
It's actually not bad, but I have to say they have just lemonade, and that one is tough. So I'm saving the lemonades for the end of the night of our podcast.
When you don't care what you're drinking anymore.
Right, exactly.
Right.
But there's a black cherry, the strawberry lemonade, another one that I haven't tried yet, and the lemonade. And, I'm not usually, I told you this on another podcast, or maybe I didn't. Maybe it was just me and you talking. But I don't generally tend to try things that say black cherry on them. I like the way it smells. It's fruity. It should taste good, but to me, it always tastes like cough syrup. So I don't go that route with drinks. And the black cherry lemonade isn't that bad. It's pretty good. But like all Trulies, it has sort of like that kind of, fake sweetener taste to it. But I bought this because yet again, I am dieting. So we've got low calorie beverage here that I'm sucking down. And it's the same thing as the other ones. Like I like the pink one. That's the wine.
Rose.
Yeah, the rosé.
Yeah.
That's right. I like that one. And then I went to the store and just saw these lemonades. So I'm like, shoot, I'll give it a shot. They're not bad. I think that they would be much better in a summer environment. So I'm going to fool myself, being that we're having a snowstorm tonight, and sit here and sip on my strawberry lemonade hard alcohol.
You got like a heat lamp just to put on yourself.
I know,
shade
right?
And your sunglasses.
Yeah. But I actually need the heat lamp because it's so damn cold.
That wouldn't be a bad idea. No.
So you mentioned it a second ago, and I posted it on Instagram because I was just so fucking mind blown at this shit. I went to the thrift store this morning. Really, I went to the thrift store because I had to rearrange everything. As everyone knows, I'm now down in the basement. So I had to rearrange my before setup so that it looks more like home instead of like my podcasting cube. And as I was rearranging everything, I've got this tile that I picked up at the Goodwill. And this tile is an actual tile from one of the burnt New Orleans houses. And it has the whole story of, how the houses, went up in flames and everything on the back of it. And I'm like, when I got that tile, it was such a message to me because Wendy and I had been planning our trip to go to New Orleans. And that was like it. That was like the sign. You are going, So I went back to the Goodwill because I wanted that sign. We're planning our big trips already. I've already got it on my mind, on my brain. I'm like, this is all that I want. So I went there looking for this sign again. And man, I was striking out. Nothing. No books. No cool new equipment. No cool nothing. I mean, just the whole place. I was like, I'm going to leave here empty-handed. I was so like pumped.
What were the types of things you were noticing? Maybe they were signs and you just missed it, like an old spatula or a broken coffee mug. Maybe those meant something, Chris.
Well, there is something that I came across right away, which is funny because it ties directly into my story. So I'm not even going to tell you about that one.
Okay.
I didn't buy it because I'm like, I don't need another one of these. So I put it down.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting that I didn't buy it because guys do not know this about me, but I'm going to be on Hoarders. This is me. I cannot put stuff down. I'm really shocked that I was just like, I don't need another one of these, and I walked away from it. So I walked back over to the pictures because honestly, I am looking for something to go on my wall in my new office at my job. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I got an office. I've been out in the middle of the damn room for 2 years, and they moved my loud ass finally into an office. So I got to decorate. And I was hoping to find something, cactusy, Arizona-like, Nevada-like, something that's desert, because that's my happy place. If I luck out and find something Jerome, Arizona, then bam, that's the best. But I couldn't find anything. They had some strange art, a lot of handmade stuff, and I'm digging and I'm looking around, and I left. And I was about to leave, and I'm like, let me just go check again. I don't know why. I just went right back to the art again. And I'm like, oh, I guess I missed this row. There might have been people standing in front of it. You know how the Goodwill is. There's always browsers. So I go to the shelf and I start thumbing through what they've got there. And in the very back is this stupid, bizarre picture. And it just looks like trees. Like, honestly, that's all you see at first. And Wendy, did you see it on Instagram?
I did, yeah.
It just looks like, I don't know, honestly, something that my grandma might have hanging up in her bathroom or something. It's very watercolor-ish, very pretty and light, and not something that I would have hanging in my house, except in the lower, like, right-hand corner, there is this what looks like a samurai ghost coming out from the trees. And he's kind of in a weird stance. And when you focus in on his face, he's kind of got like an evil face. And I was like, holy shit, I just hit gold. What is this? This is like the craziest thing I've ever picked up at the Goodwill. And folks, I have picked up some strange shit from the Goodwill. This is by far my favorite.
It's like a little ghost man in your picture. It's really wild.
It is really strange. And it's got the artist's signature. When I showed it to my husband, he's like, it's got to be like a joke. It's got to be like a local artist. And, they're just fooling around. And I'm like, maybe. I can't make out the guy's name at all. Or gals. I have no idea what it says. Willibert, Wassail. I don't know. Something Wells is all that I can really make out. But the image was so wild. And of course, then I'm digging because I'm like, oh my God, I almost left without this masterpiece. So I started digging around some more and I found a frame that fits it perfectly, but it had a mat in it. And you're supposed to put this is my child's graduation picture. And then this was the picture when they were going to kindergarten. Like it had 2 spots. The frame was $2 and the picture was $3. And the picture's brand new. It was in a plastic wrap, where I guess if
like a protective sleeve.
Yeah. Protective sleeve. It was filthy. Like maybe it was in the bottom of the garage or something. The thing was just like covered in dirt and gross. Even like touching it, like I had to come home and wash my hands because like what was all over this plastic sheet? It was just disgusting. You pull it out of the plastic sheet and it is like pristine. There's maybe a little dent, like a puncture almost in the picture itself from, like I said, whatever was sitting on top of it. But otherwise, it looks good. I did raise up the mat that it's in just to see if there was a name for the art, like if he, by some chance called it Samurai Ghost, because that's what it looked like to me. No.
I don't know. It looks like a gentleman sitting to me with his legs crossed. And I would almost say he's holding something like a dog or a chicken.
Maybe.
I'm not joking, like a rooster, but then I can't tell what's in the other arm, like he's trying to feed it or something. I wonder if they painted him into the picture and somehow like he faded and that's why he looks ghost and translucent, or was it like a joke? Like he put himself in as a ghost feeding a chicken. I'm not really sure. It is interesting.
It is weird, and I can see what you're saying. There's only one leg here. I don't know what happened to the other leg.
I think he's crossing his leg.
Yeah, he could be sitting cross-legged. And his arms are both up. When I saw it, I thought maybe he was, in a dance, like he's about to drop kick somebody. He's got like the arms raised. He's got this kind of a mean, serious look on his face. Not the look of a man feeding a chicken, but if you zoom in on his what he's got in his arm, it does look like he may be feeding a chicken.
It looks like a rooster because it looks like it has like the top feathers are a different color than the body. And maybe that rooster was in, need and aid, and that's why he looks so serious. He's wanting to make sure it gets enough food. That's the stories I would make up, but I could see your warrior stance as well. Like it's some kind of karate, stance where he's about to come out and have a high kick like on Karate Kid or whatever. I don't know what any of that stuff's called. So.
No, I don't either. But one more version of this tale might be, if you look at the full picture all spread out, not the one where he's zoomed in.
Right.
Maybe that one arm that's up where it kind of looks like it's a rooster. Maybe that's not a rooster. Maybe that's his arm. And he's holding like what looks like maybe a guitar, and he's about to strum us a little ditty there, and he's just sitting down.
Yeah. So I thought that originally too, some kind of little mandolin or whatever. Yeah. But then I also thought maybe he was pouring like a drink.
Yeah, that's my kind of ghost.
That's why he looks so serious. He's watching that level, topping it off. I have no idea. It's weird how he's faded, though.
Yeah, it's weird. Well, you can't really tell by the picture that I took because it almost looks like I took it behind the plastic like frame that it's in right now, but I didn't. So it's actually got some kind of a mist or a fog coming from the trees down to him. That's what this like white fluffy stuff is all around. And it was just so wild. So I took it up there to the cashier to buy it.
She was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What a weirdo you are.
So she goes to the price and she scans it. She turns it around to get a good look at it. And she sees the trees at first. And then she's like, whoa. And she like points at it like, did you see that? And of course I'm like, yes. She says, boy, that's going to be a conversation piece. Like, lady, you have no idea. And of course, then she sees the cheap ass frame that I'm getting, and she's like, "Oh, you're putting it in that?" Like, I'm so sorry that that's the thing that offended you. But yeah, so I brought it home. I tried my very best to figure out who the artist was. I have no idea. Just that the picture was very strange. And I had to have it. It was for $5. I mean, how could I pass that up for the whole kit and caboodle, basically, with the frame?
No, that's perfection right there.
Wild, right? So, of course, I bring it home and show Brandon. He's like, that's strange. I'm like, what would you expect? Okay, yes, I do go to the Goodwill every now and then for regular things, like regular people do, but I keep my eye open for the good things. Like
the gold right there.
So you guys, you'll hear this podcast and you'll have to go back in the feed and look for that picture, or I might repost it later on. Who knows? Maybe if I ever find out who the artist is and I have a follow-up story, then that would be good. Then I can really share some information. But for right now, it's just a mysterious piece of art that I found at the Goodwill, and I'm proud of it.
Maybe somebody else listening will know something about it and can tell us too.
Yeah, that's true.
It'd be really awesome to know, like, if that was meant on purpose for him to be ghost-like.
Yeah, honestly, and if that's like the artist's style, like, does he do more? I mean, are there others like that? Because I could fill a whole house with this sort of thing, man. So, yeah, that was pretty much my day. But you know what I actually did, and what I was going to talk to you about, was that I finally finished listening to the 40th anniversary edition, specially revised and expanded, totally unabridged version of, yes, they said all of those things when I was listening to the audiobook, The Exorcist.
Oh my gosh. How long does it make that?
Shit, I don't even remember how long it was, but it was a good book. It was dark. It was very dark. But I was so proud of myself to be finished with it. And at the same time, I was like, I can't believe I finished that book already. Like, it just seemed like it went by so quickly. But I had seen the movie. I watched a lot of the follow-up to the story and stuff on the house and the hauntings. You know, it's been on Ghost Adventures, and even the Tennessee Wraith Chasers have investigated the Exorcist house. But because I found it in my stack of, hey, you like weird shit, maybe you'll like this, I decided, yeah, okay, I'll give that a listen. I knew that it was, you know, inspired by the Roland Doe exorcism. And though I already knew that there was a lot that had changed, like names, places, and the person that's affected in the story, like the book story, is not a little boy, it's a little girl. Everyone that's seen the movie already knows that. But again, the book was super, super, super dark. There was like times I had to shut it off and I'm like, damn, that was dark. And that's my full unabridged review of that novel. It was dark. Oh, man. But when I finished the story, I decided to look up the Exorcist house just out of curiosity. And you will not believe this. Wendy, the house has been foreclosed on.
Oh.
Can you believe that? Hello, Zach Bagans, get your wallet out.
You would assume that he has already contemplated this.
I know. That's what I said, too, as soon as I saw that. How has he not been cued into this? I wasn't cued into it, but I mean, I just finished the book and just decided, let me go and check this out. The house is in St. Louis, Missouri, which works fine for us if we want to go and buy it. You know, there's some caves there and a haunted winery that we absolutely one day need to explore. And get this, the Exorcist house is only 30 minutes away from the Lemp Mansion. That, like, honestly, that hurt my feelings so bad. I mean, I'm the worst to research anything, but how would I have known? You can't, like, I guess, say, okay, Lemp Mansion, we're going to be here. Let's find out all the creepy shit all within the vicinity and try to hit all of these things. I mean, I was ashamed of myself for not knowing, but then I was like, there's no way I could have known that unless I had already been researching the Exorcist house prior to it, right?
Right. And we didn't really leave the Lemp Mansion. So.
No, we didn't. We loved it so much. Why would we? I mean, it was such an awesome place.
It would have been hard to tear ourselves away from it, I think.
Yeah. It was a good place, good atmosphere. And to leave that and kind of go to the Exorcist house,
I don't think you necessarily need to bring that with you.
You know, no. So, and one more thing that I found out, and this was just kind of a coincidence, and I know that you'll appreciate it as much as I did, the Exorcist house is at 8435 Roanoke Drive.
No fucking way.
Come on. They put this house on Roanoke Drive. Of course, they didn't build it to be the house that had, you know, all of these things happen to it. But I'm like, shit, come on. Really, that just all blew my mind. And I was like, okay, so we're just going to turn this episode into the really odd coincidences episode, right? So speaking of, coincidentally, there were actually 2 exorcists in my story, but I'm not talking about the Rolando exorcism, even though on its own, that's a very interesting story. But I've got something different for you. What I have is a little story out of Ireland. So going back to what I said earlier, when I was at the Goodwill and I'm hunting around for shit, I come across a coffee mug and it just says Ireland on it.
That's too fucking weird.
It's so fucking weird because honestly, it looked like somebody had brought it over from Ireland. And another reason why I was like, should I put it back? Put it back. You don't need another coffee mug. I do. I need to go back tomorrow and get this coffee mug.
No, I mean, the coincidence of seeing it, knowing that that's part of your story or something that night. I think
Weird.
That's all you need to take away from it. You're doing good. I don't think you'll be a hoarder one day. You seem to already be recovering from this.
Right. Honestly, if it was Ireland, anything else, I probably would have bought it. But I have no room in my glassware area. I have to keep stuff out on the drying rack because there's no more room. I have to go through it this weekend to get rid of some of the shit that's in there. So today, I'm going to tell you the story of the Cooneen Ghost, which is considered to be one of Ireland's most famous legends. And Wendy, I know you love your Irish tales, lore, and especially, ghost stories.
They're the best.
I know. So this one is for you. And let me just tell you, this is a little bit more than just a ghost story shared around Halloween time. Actually, many of the older generations from that area still remember the fear that was spread throughout the local community during the time that this story was very much a part of their daily lives. The Cooneen Ghost House became a very well-documented case of poltergeist activity and is even better known for being one of the only places in Ireland to have had 2 exorcisms.
2? That's how special they are.
Those exorcisms, I guess. Don't quote me on that. I don't know if that's right. So the story goes that a widow named Bridget Murphy, her son, and 5 daughters, and they are James, Anne, Mary, Bridget, Catherine, and Jane Ann. And they were stacked in that way by age, James being the oldest. They all lived in a house near Cooneen County, and this is the word that's going to trip me up all night, guys, Fermanagh. I heard people say this all week long while I was researching the story, and it just rolls right off their tongue. It's definitely not something that rolls off my tongue. It's spelled Fermanagh, and it trips me up all night. So that's it. Cooneen County, Fermanagh. In the early part of the 20th century, their house was deeper in a remote wooded area near Brookborough. Today, this house looks very haunting and at the end of a narrow gravel road. The wooded area that once swallowed the little farmhouse has all been cleared away. So from the base of the path, you can see the stone house and just a few trees. It's very spooky looking. It sits in ruin. It looks like a great place for a ghost story to originate from. The Murphys moved into the isolated farmhouse in 1913. And back then, it was a comfortable thatched cottage that had belonged to the people named Burnside. They sold it to the Corrigan family, who passed it on to the Sherrys. Now, the Sherry family was actually the first family to claim to have experienced poltergeist activity. They only stayed there for 1 night and were so terrified that they moved out.
Shit. They must have just been totally against it. They're just like, nope, nope, nope.
Yeah, but get this. They kept quiet about their experiences and sold the house 6 months later to the unsuspecting Murphy family. They were like, yeah, I don't know. We just couldn't sleep there.
The sun came in the window too early.
Right. Yeah. The neighbors got these fucking roosters. If you can handle it, the house is yours. I don't know what kind of excuse they gave them, but if someone moves in and then moves back out and then kind of leaves the house vacant for months, you got to question that, right? I'm guessing the Murphys didn't because they had a large family and, they kind of saw this as a golden opportunity for them. But the Murphy family became plagued by the poltergeist shortly after Bridget Murphy's husband, Michael, falls out of a cart and dies in some sort of a freak accident in 1914. His death was later believed to have been caused by the ghost. As the grieving began for the family members, they started witnessing some very strange paranormal events in their house. It started one night as most of the family had retired. Bridget and Anne were sitting beside their cottage's turf fire when they heard the children screaming in terror, and they heard loud tapping on the walls and heavy footsteps. Bridget got James, and together they searched the whole house but found nothing. Now, after this, the family started to hear the occasional knocking at the front door. Of course, when any member of the family would go to answer the door, there was nobody there. The noises then became more frequent, with knocking and banging on all the doors and windows. Yeah, they're just like having their porridge, and there's like bam, 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 bam. There ain't nobody there at the window.
That is such an alarming thing that makes you like jump. You freeze and panic. Like, who's at the door? Imagine going to peek out the window, just like, I hope it's not that nosy ass fucking neighbor. I don't have time to talk to her. And then there's nobody there. And you're like, that's not right.
You know?
And then somebody's banging on the back door and then the windows. I'd be hiding underneath the bed. Because where do you go? You can't get out because it's outside.
Yeah, that's so true. And this is one of those stories where the bed is not the safe place either, just so you know.
Note to self.
It's funny, though, that you kind of went into detail on that. Our doorbell upstairs, the chime is upstairs, and it is low. You know, every now and then you hear it just fine, and then every now and then you don't. And I don't care if it works or not, because I don't have people coming over. If you're coming over, I know it. I know it months in advance. I know exactly when you should be there. So, you know, I'll be looking for you. But anybody else, who cares? So I was upstairs actually taking down the Christmas tree, and I had the TV going, and my husband's in the other room screaming at the computer like he does. And I thought I heard a ding, and I look out the window and I don't see anybody. So I'm just like, whatever. I imagined it. So I continue doing what I'm doing, and and then I look out the window and I see two people kind of walking down the driveway, and they're looking up at the window and they see me. And I'm like, oh, well, shit. Now they know I was here and I was just ignoring them. But I really didn't know. And they were just doing a survey. I don't care. Whatever.
Well, yeah. But see, that's the thing here, too, is everybody's got like headphones on, or we're busy doing something, and we never really hear it. The dogs are what sets us off. All of a sudden, they're barking and running towards the door, and you're like, wait, what just happened? Did the doorbell ring? So you're creeping towards it slowly. You don't know. Are they just acting weird or what?
Yeah, right.
Like you're unnerved to begin with.
Right.
And then to find out, oh, yeah, actually, there's nobody there. How about that?
Yeah.
It's not your nosy neighbor. It's a fucking demon. Ghost, whatever. It's not good if it's playing tricks on you like that.
It's very not good. It's not fun either, because can you imagine you're like working on feeding 6 kids, and then all of a sudden you got to go check the door again?
Right.
What the hell? What is going on?
And then it's at the back door. And then it's at the window. Did the husband die on the property?
What I understand, now this is an old ass story from Ireland, so there's a lot of it that I don't have all the details for. And honest to God, I had to really research this to get their fucking names, because most of the stories are just like, yeah, she had some kids. Her husband. I didn't even know her name was Bridget until like days after researching this. I'm like, thank the Lord. You guys, come on, just give me the details. I found all their names in like the census record. And honestly, when he fell out of the cart and died, they said that everybody thought it was just a freak accident. And like I said, it wasn't until like really the poltergeist activity started happening in the house that they were like, oh shit, let's think about that some more. Because it doesn't seem right that he just fell out of the cart. You know, it was odd. So they're like, I think it was the fucking ghost that did it. So we think that it's on the property, but I don't have that exact detail for you.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it would cross her mind at times. She'll start to think it's the ghost of her husband, like doing these things or something. No,
that doesn't come up at all.
Okay.
That's funny that you went there, because when I first had this story, like I said, all I had was her husband died in some sort of freak accident. Poltergeist activity started happening. I'm like, well, it was him. Duh. Come on.
Right,
let's narrow it down. We got it. That's our ghost. No, wait until you hear the rest of this.
Okay.
It's really weird. So the noises became more frequent, with knocking and banging on the doors and windows, and sometimes on the walls, to the tune of the Soldier Song and the Boyne Water. Now, don't ask me to sing these tunes because I don't know them. They're not on my greatest hits. But I thought that was really unique. And it actually came up a couple of times that like the entity would respond to those tunes. Kind of like, what is it, like shave and a haircut, you know, do. It would end the song or whatever. So above the house was the room used for storage of hay. This room was only accessible by a stone staircase. And in the room, heavy footsteps were often heard, yet again, nobody was ever up there.
Can I just say something? This seems like a terrible idea to store your hay inside your house.
Yeah.
That seemed like a problematic situation.
And I don't think it was the whole upstairs either.
It's just a hay closet.
They say stored the hay, but I wonder if it was actually like bedding because the kids slept upstairs.
Right.
So I don't see them like, let's bring these bales of hay upstairs just to store it. That seems kind of, I don't know, pointless. Let's store it downstairs where it's easier to get to. But again, I didn't live there. I didn't know what the deal was back in the day. Like maybe it made more sense for them. Who knows?
I think they did use it for bedding. I didn't know this late in the centuries that they would still be using it for bedding. But hey, if you've got nothing else. And I imagine they just chuck it out the window when it's time for like fresh hay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't have to talk about how she does her laundry, basically. It was just like, this is a fire waiting to happen is all I'm saying.
Yeah, right. Well, and again, I'm just speculating. I did read that, the kids slept upstairs. So, that's where I was going with that idea. But, maybe the upstairs was just so big that they were just like, well, we've got the extra space, just store the hay up there. I don't really know. The stone staircase seemed kind of narrow, though. I wouldn't be wanting to carry anything up that staircase. I don't know. It looks dangerous. Or it did. It's gone now, but, back in the day. And by gone, I mean the staircase is like, you can't climb it because it's all like, the rocks fell apart over time.
Gotcha.
So the family decided to get friends and neighbors to come over to the house and check out all of this craziness for themselves. Even an Irish politician visited the home. These people would all come in, sit in the kitchen, listening to the banging on the windows and the doors and the footsteps, which were always heard coming from upstairs. MP Cahir Healy, that's our politician, and this MP Cahir Healy was quoted as saying, "I simply could not believe what I was seeing." And politicians never lie, so that's got to be super, super trustworthy stuff right there.
That was a good one. I love how back then they would open the doors to people to prove the hauntings.
Right.
But nowadays, if a place says, "I'm haunted, you want to come see it?" $500 to rent it.
I know.
You know what I mean? It's just like,
sign your name on the dotted line and let's do this PayPal transfer.
Yeah.
Right. And you only get to see it for 3 hours and then get the fuck out. Unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse when more intense paranormal activities started to happen. The family witnessed plates lift off the table and fly across the room, smashing against the walls. That sounds familiar, right? Didn't that happen in Tina Wretch's story too? Like she was in the kitchen and like cups and shit started. I think it was the same situation.
Sorry.
What?
So we're going to have to cut this out because it is so random. From that episode when you're saying that shit was flying around and everything, you said the eggs came out of the carton and you were like, fuck those eggs. And I said that will forever be the best.
Oh, imagine.
It was the funniest moment. I wanted that so bad to be the title.
That is so funny. I forgot all about that moment.
Because you're saying dishes and stuff. And so my mind goes real quick thinking something about like when it happens in Ghostbusters in Dana's kitchen and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I thought about the eggs coming out of Dana's carton and I said, oh my God, the funniest thing Chris has ever said.
Those eggs. That's so funny. Remember I just mentioned Zool earlier too, and you're talking about Ghostbusters.
Well, we probably mentioned Ghostbusters at least during one of our podcasts. Every time. I don't know. Okay.
So they also watched as the bed lifted several inches off the ground by itself and fall back down again. So things for the Murphys got so bad that Mrs. Murphy turned to the church for help. She got Father Coyle from McGuire's Bridge. He visited the house and watched the activity for himself. And he reported that mysterious shapes appeared and disappeared on the walls as he stood inside the house.
That's a nope. What was the scary movie where there's the faces in the walls?
I don't know about that one.
It's creepy and haunted me. You know, this is how I watch horror movies. I don't know the titles because I sit there and say, I'm not watching that. Fuck that bullshit. And then like peek around the corner. What are they looking at? Why are they so interested in this? What's so good about it? And I see one little moment of faces morphing through walls and I'm like, fuck that. And I run off. That's why I don't know the name of the movie. Because I remember seeing that scene and then I'm like, I'm out. Nope. Never mind. So he was seeing figures on the walls. He wasn't seeing like faces. He saw like...
Yeah, mysterious shapes would appear and then just disappear. Like he just watched this shit kind of manifest and then dissipate. He also claimed to see the pots and pans suddenly fly across the room on their own. Father Coyle was quoted as saying, "I stood in the children's bedroom and watched bedclothes on an empty bed rise and fall. I felt a cold, evil presence." Father Coyle then and Father Peter Smythe were granted permission for the 2 exorcisms which were performed in the house. And during the exorcisms, the activity continued, but it also intensified. One of Bridget's daughters were awoken to her bed being slid across the floor. Unexplained noises were heard and reported as coming from far below the ground. I don't know what that even means, but I saw it so many times. And I'm like, can you give me just a little more detail? I mean, you hear something, so you stick your head against the floor and you're like, yeah, it's all the way. I mean, you go to the basement. Like, how does that's crazy.
It's a unique way of describing things.
Yes, I agree. There was a lot of that. And I don't know if that's just the disconnect because I'm American and there was a lot of, Irish explanations for things, but
like that they know how it sounds deep underneath the ground.
Yeah, there's a lot of very unique ways of explaining things. I had to go back and rewrite some of this so that I'm like, okay, this makes more sense to me. But again, a lot of this came from a long ass time ago too. So as you could imagine, the Murphy children were traumatized, and it seems for them, it continued to get worse. The family was terrified. They had hoped that the exorcisms would work. However, the poltergeist activity in the house actually got worse. And then their friends and neighbors turned on them. Yeah, the people that came in and they were like, oh, yeah, I hear that shit. Oh, yeah. They started spreading rumors that James Murphy had been practicing witchcraft, and it actually brought the entity upon the family.
It's probably in defense to the church, I would assume. It's kind of like, now you've had 2 fucking exorcists and this hasn't gone yet. You're doing something to keep it here, or to bring it here, because the Almighty would have taken care of this shit.
So the thing that I discovered while I was researching this and discussing it, but the fact that, like I said before, they only had 2 exorcisms, they only did that for a reason. Like, they have to really fucking believe, like, seriously, wholeheartedly, that there is a necessity for this, that it is not a mental illness, that there is a legit demon or some kind of entity. So, I mean, like, this was huge. So you're right. This was so huge for everyone in the city. Like, this was newsworthy huge. There are articles all about it that are still kept, like, in the libraries that are, like, in pristine condition because this was the shit at the time. And yeah, so maybe you're right. Maybe the neighbors were like jumping on that bandwagon to quickly blame one of the people in the family because the church should have resolved it, I guess, with their religious ways. I don't know.
That, or it was just time to juice up the story, They've been probably waiting to say that for so long. They were just like, oh, wait, the father's there. Don't talk about it. And then he leaves and they're like, witches.
Well, and it's funny to me, too, because as soon as they started spreading rumors about the kid practicing witchcraft, I'm like, oh, yeah, I saw that episode on My Haunted House or whatever. Yeah, it's always the kid fucking around with the Ouija board or something. So yeah, duh, he did it, Here I am like defending the church, but at the same time I'm like, I mean, maybe, because this is weird. There were claims that James had found a mysterious book in a forest near Cooneen called The Legions of Doom. And I thought that was especially weird because they had a fucking name for the book. So, I mean, when the family and the neighbors were all over witnessing, the pots and pans flying around and the windows rattling and all of this, did they see the book laying around? It's weird. And of course, James isn't around to defend himself today. So just saying, this could very much go either way.
They see his odd Dungeons and Dragons manual out, and they're just like, right? Witchcraft. I saw him in the woods playing with that. He's out there role playing.
I know. Oh!
He's got no other boys to play with.
That's awesome. And that's how we end this story. Blame it on Dungeons and Dragons. I love it. So the alleged Legions of Doom book was supposed to give instructions on how to practice satanic rites and how to contact demons, like your everyday how-to guide.
Right.
Today we just have Pinterest. You just, well, how do I dial up a demon? Oh, here we go. Pinterest has like 40 pages of it. Sweet. Nobody's spreading rumors about you today because they're like, oh, that bitch is a witch. Just let's stay away from her. So the friends and neighbors claimed that the Murphy son started to develop an unhealthy interest in the spirit world. Unhealthy. Blasphemy.
It is. It's also rude, too. Like,
yeah.
It's a time where they don't think about people's emotions or anything. This boy lost his father, and he lives in a house with nothing but females. So,
yeah, it's so true.
I mean, who wouldn't want to seek that out? If he was doing something like that, they're also probably just making up stories, to put the blame on them because they want to believe that this entity comes from something or somewhere that they can point the finger at. And so they can't just say it's existed on this earth for that long or it came from those other people that spent one night there. Who knows what they did in that one night? Maybe they started this whole bullshit. Maybe they left it on purpose, let it fester for a few months all alone, like it's in timeout, and then they put a sad little family in there. Oh, he hadn't died yet, so that I wouldn't say sad. I mean, but if the kid was into the spiritual world, that makes sense because he's lost his dad and everything. He's probably trying to connect.
Yes. That's true. I still don't think it was, the dad having anything to do with this.
No, I'm just saying if the boy was experimenting with that stuff.
Yeah, I could see that. When the majority of this activity started, they were all in the grieving process because their dad had just died. So of course he was interested in the spiritual realm, just like you said. I would. I mean, definitely. I think anybody that has a strong bond with a family member would be, tempted to go that route.
Yeah. It doesn't really explain his Book of Doom, though.
Like you said, that was role playing. I like that. No, that was World of Warcraft before we had computers, man. That's all it was. Okay, so they claim that Murphy's son started to develop an unhealthy interest in the spirit world, like I just said, and was supposed to have tried to raise a demonic spirit in the house. This was apparently the straw that broke the camel's back. They'd been pushed out of the house by an unseen force and by the people that they thought were their friends. So the Murphys set sail for America. But much to the horror of the Murphys, the poltergeist was ready for a family vacation too. And it followed them all the way to America. According to the stories that I've read, the passengers on board the ship complained about the rapping and banging noises that were coming from the Murphys' cabin. The noises had gotten so bad that the captain went personally to Mrs. Murphy to tell her to stop making so much damn noise in the cabin. The captain apparently didn't buy her. It wasn't me. It was the poltergeist story.
Note to self, use that in the future.
Give it a shot. But like I said, he didn't buy it, and he actually threatened to put them off the ship if the noise continued. So I guess either the noises calmed down or they made it to land before he could kick them off because they made it to New York. The stories say that the activity continued for just a short time, only to have stopped on its own in 1915. The manifestations and rapping noises, which had become a very regular part of their lives, had finally subsided and eventually stopped altogether, allowing the family to get on with their new lives in America the very best that they could. Although, for one member of the family, moving on was not as easy. I'm not sure which of the daughters it was. I wasn't able to find her name, but one of Mrs. Murphy's daughters was said to have been so traumatized that she spent the rest of her life in a mental institution in America.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, it was some fucked up shit. Let's just say it was the youngest. I didn't mention the ages at the very beginning only because I thought it would be kind of hard to follow along, but let me just skip back and I'll tell you their names along with their ages. Okay, so we have James, who was 21, Anne, who was 18, Mary, who was 16, another Bridget, who was 12, Catherine, age 7, and Jane Ann, age 3. So out of all of them, in my opinion, probably be, on the younger side, just because their coping mechanisms aren't as stronger, I guess, as some of the, adulter ones. I mean, adulter ones. I just made that shit up. That's not a word.
Sounded okay to me. I make up words all the time.
I made up a word the other night, and my husband, he's just like, what? And I'm like, that's right, you heard me. That's my new word. But I just assume in the time frame that these kids had to grow up, the ones that were like 16, 18, 21, okay, maybe not so much as 16, but the 18 and 21-year-old, I mean, I feel like they'd probably seen some shit, and maybe they were a little bit more grounded than some of the younger ones who they're being faced with all of this shit all at once. Their father's dead and all of this shit's going on. To me, it would be most likely one of those. But again, I'm just speculating because I don't know.
Right. Well, that totally makes sense. So the older ones can reason things out.
Yeah.
Where the younger ones just kind of live in fear the whole time.
Right. They're just having to rely on mom and older brother and older sister to say it's going to be okay, we think. You just don't worry about that bed flying around. I don't. So as for the Cooneen house today, many think that the poltergeist still lingers in the shadows of the iconic stone building that has been standing vacant since the early 1900s. Traditionally, surrounded by a vast creaking forest of dense trees. The Cooneen Ghost House was brought to light when the Northern Ireland Forest Service chopped down all of the surrounding trees. In the early 1990s, the Cooneen Community Development Association began exploring the possibility of attracting more tourism by developing the infamous location. However, their plans were quickly demolished by the local priest, who warned them that trouble would befall the members if they disturbed the haunted building. A local paranormal investigator, Graham Gunn, of the, here's this word again, guys, Paranormal Society, also urged caution, stating, and I'm sorry that I can't pronounce it, it's just that I'm going to butcher it either way, but he urged caution, stating, there is a very heavy and eerie atmosphere surrounding the house. The reason it is such an attraction to many paranormal enthusiasts is due to the story of the actual hauntings, as well as being one of the very few places that an exorcism had been performed in Ireland. And I quote, I can understand the point the local priest has made, as I think the Cooneen Ghost House should only be visited by those that want to further understand the story of it and not have the house exploited by those who want to commercialize it. He suggested that having paranormal evenings where people are, I love that, right? That's my favorite. I want a paranormal evening. Yes. Where people are encouraged to share stories and host discussions that would help promote the local history and folklore of the area and could coincide with visits to the house. Yes, sir. I am on board.
No, this dude, man, he's like, no. Yeah. What the priest is saying, totally right. You shouldn't develop the area and make it like a tourist, or visitor center or something like that. No, instead you should have paranormal events there. I can help you out with that.
I know. Let me go back. Is this Nick Groff? Hang on a second.
No, it's us. Are you fucking kidding? If anybody would listen to us, we're like, no, please leave it as it is.
Right.
And just allow us to go in there as much as we like.
Never
mind, the priest just said, no, stay out of there. Leave them alone. That's what he actually said. Don't say you agree with him and then say, no. You should only let us go in there.
Right.
We know what we're doing. We're fine.
Yeah. Yeah, this guy clearly had a motive.
I 100% respect it, too. I have to know if they bought it, though.
No.
If they were like, sir, sit your ass down.
It's funny. I do have a little bit more about that. I thought you'd like this part, too. A Forest Service spokeswoman told the paper, the ghost house is not registered by the Department of Environment as a listed building, although Forest Service recognizes the cultural significance of the ghost house and would welcome proposals from interested bodies for any development that would promote its special interest. They're like, dude, we don't care. Whoever's going to buy it, y'all can do whatever the fuck you want to with it.
They're like ready to get rid of it. It's just they don't, like when the priest is like, no, I said no. They're like, oh, do we go against him? I don't.
Right.
I mean, like, it is just sitting there.
Yeah, it is. And this is funny too. The Fermanagh and Omagh District Council's forthcoming tourism development strategy aims to maximize the tourism potential of the entire district rather than promote individual facilities, and the council, and I quote, does not have in place any type of haunted buildings policy. So bring the cash. I love it. So with that said, let's move on to some commercializing of the property. So in 2010, a lady by the name of Marion Goodfellow, she's one of the UK's top spiritual mediums, visited the house as part of the BBC series Northern Ireland's Greatest Haunts. The Cooneen Ghost was investigated in Season 2, Episode 2 of the program. Marion commented that it was probably the scariest and most awful place she had ever visited. Walking up the path toward the house, Marion became visibly short of breath. She said that she felt the presence of a man about 5 foot 8 inches tall, and as she continued to approach the house, she said that the man was very angry and did not want her there, or anyone for that matter. And actually, when they went there, the house was still surrounded by trees, too. So you can actually watch this episode on YouTube and see what it used to look like.
I dig that.
It's good. So the man she made contact with, she said that she could only see his upper torso. and he was wearing a dark coat and holding a large flat stone. She said that she felt that he was hiding something and he was being super nasty to her. She also picked up that his name was John. Marion described the energy of the place as being evil and quotes the entity as saying, "Get behind me, Satan." That's an interesting quote to say.
I'm like, wait, what does that mean?
I don't know. He's got to be like, "You got my back, Satan? Cool. All right. We got this." So the Northern Ireland's Greatest Haunts show, it gave me a really like Dead Files kind of a vibe.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, but like an Irish version.
Even better.
I know. The show opens with spooky music, of course. It's the theme from Halloween. You know, the do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Right. And medium psychic Marion Goodfellow lets you know, like she comes in and she does her intro. She was born on Halloween. Of course, that could be the reason why they're doing the Halloween theme song, I guess. Right. They're just like, yeah, amp it up to 10. And then she also says that she was the 7th daughter of 7 daughters, which I didn't know about this. Sorry. Maybe I should have. But in Irish folklore, this automatically makes you a witch.
No, what was it that makes you a vampire? It was something like that too.
Something like that too? Well, it was on your episode.
Yeah, I said it. I don't even remember it anymore.
I remember you had that list too.
It was a certain number, but I think it was if you were of the opposite sex.
Yeah.
So if you were like the 7th, but you had to be a male, if there was all females, that type thing or something like that, then you're a vampire. Isn't that funny?
That is crazy because it must be along the same legend then, because they had one for sons too. Like if you were the 7th son of the 7th son, I don't know, something like that, then you were going to be a great healer or whatever. But if you were a female, the 7th of the 7th, then you're automatically a witch. So I was like, whoa, I should have known that. I'd never heard that before. So the show investigates the legend and the claims of the haunting. They end up talking to a couple of filmmakers that attempted to film at the Cooneen Ghost House. The film crew kind of got freaked out. They heard loud noises and said that the house was very eerie. And at the end of their time there, you can actually, like, because they were filming, you can actually see them fling the tiny abandoned house, like, get the fuck out of here. Like they're peacing out. Now, getting back to the psychic who said that she'd picked up on, the man 5'8" named John, guy wasn't very nice. Well, a strange thing about that is when the investigator in the show, and this is Andy, and for our reference, Andy would be the Steve DeShavi, since I'm saying this is like Dead Files. But no offense to Andy. He's no Steve DeShavi. Andy's good.
He doesn't live in Florida and walk around half dressed.
I know. Showing off his tattoos or his necklace or whatever. It's just, when you watch a show like Dead Files and you get the Amy Allen and the Steve DeShavi, like, these are your bros. This is your show. You've got the vibe. And you can pick that up from this BBC show. You see that they've kind of got the same vibe, only I think Andy is English and he's just very gentlemanlike. And Steve DeShavi, he's nice too. It's just, he's a retired homicide detective from New York. He's just got a different down-to-earth kind of approach.
Yeah.
Again, nothing against Andy. It's just, it was so weird to pick up on the similarities and also be like, oh, you're supposed to be, yeah, okay. Well then.
Well, you would assume that it's easy for them to do that. Not to say that that is what they're trying to do, but they see a popular American show or even vice versa, like The Office.
Right.
We take a popular British show and copy it, but set it in America and everything.
Yeah.
You don't know who was even first here, if it was your show that you're talking about from Ireland or if it was
Dead
Files.
Idea.
But yeah,
right.
I mean, like, they can use the same concept for a show over there because it's showing up on the BBC and we don't all get the BBC. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the show was good. And this guy, he's a good researcher. His name is Andy again. He's researching the legend in the local library. I think I said this earlier. He's the one that finds all of the old papers and stuff. And he finds an article in a book that says there was a rumor at the time about an old pensioner. The old pensioner had been murdered there on the day that he drew his pension. His name happened to be Johnny. So could be a strange coincidence. I don't know. It's odd, right? She picked up on a John, and this is Johnny. Now, this book is really something. The book that he found the article in, it's the Ghost Book by Shane Leslie. He's also known as Sir Shane Leslie. And yeah, this wasn't just an ordinary guy writing a book. The dude was a first cousin to Winston Churchill.
Damn.
Every time I found something out, I'm like, you've got to be shitting me, man. What? So his book was published in the 50s, and it had some pretty high ratings if you go and search for it. It's an antique now, and you can buy the original for about $40 to $45 at, like, I don't know, thrift booksellers online. But you can always get the reprint on Amazon or download it to your Kindle. Either way, it looks like it'd be a goodie. So Shane Leslie was able to collect firsthand stories from the priests involved in the Cooneen Ghost House, and he put it all out there in his book. He stated that one father felt fear in the presence of the poltergeist, and that it was like an animal under the sheet that would spit or lap like a dog. At one point, Mrs. Murphy confided in the priest, admitting that she felt the activity centered around her daughter, Annie.
Oh, the youngest, yeah. Right,
yeah.
Wait.
Hang on, let me scroll back up.
I think I think the youngest is Jane. There was an Anne or whatever,
yeah.
And then there was Jane Ann.
You're right.
Yeah.
Anne was the 18-year-old.
She was running out of names at the end. She was like James, and yeah, those are my favorite kids. So
So let's do one of that. Maybe this one will be the one that goes to college and stuff.
One, yeah.
As Andy dug deeper into the original newspaper articles buried in the archives at the local library, he uncovered more creepy reports from several other witnesses, having also witnessed the bed sheets rising and falling and cups being thrown around, and he again found references to the poltergeist being really nasty. So, on to their investigation. During the first night of the show's investigation, they went in full force, really expecting to get hit hard based on all of the stories. But they didn't really get a whole lot. One grainy, hard-to-hear EVP that might say, "Hi, Andy," in a childlike tone. But you're being led. When you listen to it, like, I didn't hear anything right away. And the ghost hunter's kind of like, yeah, we think this is what it's saying. And then after you hear it, you're like, okay, I can kind of hear it. But you can even watch Andy listening to it, and he's like, that's kind of a stretch. But one thing that I didn't include in my story is that I did see some other ghost hunters investigate there, and it was kind of weird to me, but they seemed to pick up voices that sounded childlike too. So if the ghost hunter here, it's not even worth really putting it out there for people to hear it because it is so grainy and hard to hear. But other people picked up on childlike voices. So that's something to take note of. Demon. So they decide to go back the next night and try a completely different angle. They decided against the full-on ghost hunter-like approach. No EMF devices or spirit boxes or anything like that. Just audio recorders and camera equipment. And that night, they had a ton of equipment issues, like stuff that was very uncommon for them. Their cameras that they use all the time just started doing things that they had never seen happen before. And by that, I mean weird black bands appearing in their digital pictures. The pictures are darkened over an entire area around the picture, except for the faces of the people in the picture. And actually, I took screenshots, so I'm going to send those to you now so you can see them.
Okay. Oh, that cuts it very weird. That's not what I expected. That is strange. That camera is something else. What year was this?
I know, right? This is 2010.
Wow.
Yeah, you're talking about his camera that he's using. That is strange.
That's a humongous
beast of a camera right there.
Do you need that big of a lens looking for ghosts? It's not a tiger in the distance. It should be right there in front of you.
Oh my God, that is so funny. I just looked at the black bands and I was like, holy shit, that's weird. And you're like, look at this fucking camera, dude. Seriously, it's unnecessary. This is why you offended the ghosts. You're trying to get all up in their butt cracks with these wide angle lenses, zoom to the millionth degree.
Some of us do not appreciate that high def, you know. I'm sure an old ghost has lots of wrinkles to hide. Oh, God. But it is weird. So the bar across, I thought it was just going to be like in the middle of the screen or something. Yeah. It's like slanted. It's like you're looking through pieces of wood or something like that, but at a slant.
Yeah.
It's weird. That's interesting for sure.
So they noticed this while they were like taking pictures and tried to recreate it. So I'm sending you now an image of what they did to recreate it. And you'll see that while it has like the slant, it's red because this is their fucking fingers in front of the lens. So it's kind of creepy because it's basically the same shape, but it's fleshy toned. Whereas the other ones are the same shape, but they're black.
Right. You know what I just thought of, though, is you don't know what camera they're using. I'm just putting this out here. I don't know this because I see that they are holding camcorders.
Yes.
But if you were using like camera, 35 millimeter or something like that, and the lenses can actually shut, not the lenses, it shutters, I guess you would say. But the way Canons work and stuff now, they don't do that, right?
It's all digital.
Yeah. So the stuff doesn't get stuck.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day, like your camera was broke after that.
Yes, your camera was broke. Very good point. My Canon that was a sure shot or a super shot or whatever the hell it was called that we used when like we were first investigating. It's exactly what the fuck happened to it. It had one of those broken shutter things and it quit working on us. This is why I had to upgrade because the fucking shutter was busted. And as I looked into it, apparently all of that exact model of Canon had the same fucking malfunction.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. So I know exactly what you mean. It's the little, I don't know, kind of like, what are those Fiats? You remember those Fiats where the headlights would go up, right? Then you turn the car on, and then you'd see them every now and then where like one was still up and the other one was like halfway down, not, not all the way, but it's like winking at you.
Right. So if they were taking pictures with a camera like that and it broke, but I would assume they, somebody checked that out. They saw other photos afterwards, didn't have the same situation or whatever. Yeah.
That's to the degree that I got it. The paranormal people with the show, Northern Ireland's Greatest Haunts, they seem like when they were, kind of interviewing them for the show, they're letting you know that they're only interested in hard evidence. They're not just, looking for whatever they can find. And if they had other pictures that followed immediately that were good, then, that would be the hard evidence. It's hard to say. I wasn't there. And they did have a lot of equipment malfunctions that they mentioned right off the bat. They said that they had significant battery drain in like 3 pieces of equipment all at the same time. Like they were all full and then they went zoop down to nothing. So, there was weird shit happening to their equipment. Oh, their cameras also started freezing up and stopped taking pictures altogether. So it was like, nope. And they mentioned they heard rocks being thrown at them, which you can clearly hear in the video. And they said all night long that they felt like they were being watched. So unfortunately, that was really all that they caught that was interesting. Many other local ghost hunters have gone to the Cooneen Ghost House and have reported very similar experiences as the team from Northern Ireland's Greatest Haunts. They reported having an oppressed feeling and the feeling like they shouldn't be there. But for some of these other ghost hunters, they were able to capture high EMF readings as well.
Which is insane because there's no electricity there.
There's nothing. And this is one of those places where you go and you have to have like 10,000 battery packs because if the activity is so high and it's draining all your battery, shit, you can't plug in. You got to have this battery pack that weigh like 1,000 pounds too. So one more report that I read was from a group going to film/investigate. They were stopped by a man on the way that was basically like, don't go there. Nothing good has ever come from visiting that place. And they went on ahead. And before they made it, one of their camera guys fell into a ditch. It was so bad that they had to call an ambulance. I guess the guy got hurt pretty badly. The person that was down in the ditch, unfortunately, had no memory of what happened to him. He said that he was just walking along and then he was in the ditch. And then 2 of the others with him said that watching him looked like he was pushed. And I thought that story was very significant because that kind of goes back to the freak accident from, Michael Murphy, where he was just in a cart and then he was dead.
Yeah.
So for anybody else who is planning on going to visit this place while it's in its current state, you'd better get over there pretty soon because this haunted little eyesore caught somebody's attention. So Peter McKinley is doing everything that he can to raise 250,000 euros through various funding in order to restore the property. So I think that's all you need is 250,000 euros. P.S.
Okay.
We don't have that laying around, but it's accessible.
We go in it together, and I imagine there's lots of land. How much do you think it would take for me to ship my camper over there?
I don't know. But I got some connections being that I'm in the freight industry. So
right?
Hold that thought.
It sleeps like 6. So we can almost all get in there. Somebody has to sleep outside. No, not really. We'll make it work.
So it was the story run by the newspaper that revealed that the Forest Service, which owns the land the cottage is situated on, was looking for proposals to transform the building and gave Mr. McKinley this idea. Of course it did. Gave us an idea too. The cottage is legendary in Fermenagh.
I think it gets worse every time you say it.
I think I misspelled it every time I put it in here, too, which is even worse.
How do you do that?
Because there's too many different letters in here that don't make sense to me.
What's it start with an F?
F. Do you want me to write it down? You want to see if you can do it for me?
You gave it like a nickname.
I know. Like I said, these guys were saying it, and I'm like, I can say it if he can say it. And then I go and look at the word, and I'm like, I can't say that word. I listen. They're like, Fermenagh. Yeah, I think that's how they say it. Fermenagh. And I look at it with all these extra H's and A's in here, and I'm like, it's Fermenagh. I just said it like 14 times, so I'm going with it.
That sounds good.
Here we go. And 5, 4. The cottage is legendary in Fermenagh. I used to spend every Christmas in 5 Mile Town, and abandoned buildings in the countryside have always intrigued me, says McKinley. But with the local folklore attached, it was an irresistible prospect for Peter, who has recently relocated to 5 Mile Town and is working on a business plan to present to the Forest Service. So this guy's already got shit lined up. He says the project is going to be to restore the house to how it would have been in Bridget Murphy's time in 1913, when all the poltergeist activity was occurring. I do kind of like that. That's like Lizzie Borden style.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. He also plans to add a caretaker's cottage, 7 custom-built camping pods in the traditional Irish one-room cottage style, along with a toilet/shower block and a modest utility shed. I just hope the toilet/shower isn't like a 2-for-1 combo. I was confused by that.
I've seen some really small campers that you're basically showering over the toilet. There's like European style places that are like that too. Maybe that's what he means. Maybe he just means it's really compact. Who knows? I'm very interested by what you're describing here. It sounds like we can go camping there, but yet we have a fully restored house in the center of everything. So what's it like? Paranormal groups get their own little cottages? We don't need sleeping space, sir.
No.
We do need somewhere to charge our batteries, though.
I think he's working on a plan. I think that you were right in what you thought earlier is that there's a lot of land here. And I think you don't just get the house that's haunted. He's going to get like all this acreage too. So maybe that's why the price tag is so high. Because otherwise, it's a building that's sitting in ruin. I'm sure that they're probably selling that at dirt cheap prices because they ain't doing anything with it.
No, and it would take so much to restore it or whatever. It's the land you're paying for. I'm certain of it.
Yeah, I think so too. And this is what he's going to do with it. So the restored house will be open to visitors during the day where they can enjoy a menu of traditional Irish food. But at night, however, when the building is closed up, high-definition CCTV cameras will be turned on to try to capture paranormal activity. The camera feeds will be live-streamed online, enabling ghost hunters across the world to tune in and alert Peter if anything supernatural happens. So yeah, you can ghost hunt from the comfort of your own home and not have to worry about that whole bathroom situation that confused the shit out of me. And he added, this will be a museum to Irish country life, a museum to the Cooneen Ghost, a thing of beauty in East Fermanagh.
Sure.
Did it sound better that time? I should have given it a nickname, man. Like the Roberts. So this story started out for me as just something that I wanted to post on Instagram on St. Patrick's Day in 2019. Clearly, it had nothing to do with St. Patrick's Day, but it was an interesting Irish ghost legend I could not share when I found out about it. Of course, when I posted it, I had to greatly condense my story for that post, and going back to it now, I didn't have all the facts straight. But to be honest, while researching the story, I read a few different variations of things like the number of Bridget Murphy's daughters, for instance. At one time, she was said to have 7 daughters, and at another time, only 5. And I was like, well, yeah, sure, her family could grow. But over the 2 years that this was said to have happened, her youngest was only 3. So I just think that some of the details kind of got, lost in translation. Or if Bridget did have another daughter, I couldn't find a name or an age or anything like that. So either way, researching the story was fucking crazy. The Irish accents that I got to hear, I mean, I just absolutely adore them. And again, sorry for butchering the shit out of your story, because I know I can't pronounce it the way that you guys can. And it's amazing. So the things that I found on YouTube, stuff like that, I'll definitely post so you all can hear it just like I did. One side note that I have to mention, and it's weird that I connect the two, but I watched this show called Project Blue Book. And the main actor is Aidan Gillen. And you know him as Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, or I think he's in your Peaky Blinders.
Yep.
So he's Irish.
Yes, he is.
And in Project Blue Book, he's doing his best American accent. But now after watching all of this about the Cooneen Ghost and all of these Irish accents, like that's all I hear when he speaks. I don't think I was so cued into that before. I'm watching the show now, getting caught up because the new season's about to roll out. And I'm like, hey, he doesn't sound American all of a sudden. Now he sounds Irish. And I thought that was so funny. So, of course, I had to look into him even more. And I was so shocked to find this out, too. I'm just connecting dots that aren't really there. But I found out that Aidan Gillen was actually born Aidan Murphy. And so there you have it. Since I'm doing a whole story on the Murphys, there's one more.
It's all connected. It's his family. It's got to be. It's got to be. We're going to connect them, whether it is or not. Common Irish name? Who cares?
Who cares?
They're related.
It's all connected. I bet he knows the story.
Oh, I bet he does know the story.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like it would be one that would just pass people by. 2 exorcists and fucking house that the priest says, no, don't go there. Don't do anything with it. I'm pretty sure that would stand out. He has a great accent. Because I mean, like when you meet him in Game of Thrones and you just assume, like so many of them, that he's English or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you catch him in interviews and you're like, wait, that's what am I hearing? He's a good actor. I like him.
I was wanting to make sure that I was going to say his name right, because I screwed up so much more in this podcast. So let me get one thing right. So I did go and watch a couple interviews that they had with Aidan, and I got to hear his actual accent, him not trying to pull off the American accent or anything like that. I just, when you watch a show and you're so used to him sounding one way, and then you see him in his native tongue or whatever, it's like, oh my God, you lied. Oh wait, he's an actor. Yes. So but I was so impressed and happy for me to be able to tie in Aliens, my show, with Irish poltergeists and exorcisms and all of that. It's my favorite.
Sounds about right. I mean, you don't know where this thing is coming from, They said deep within the earth. I mean... Deep
within the earth, yeah,
who
right?
knows what's in there?
It could be fucking goblins for all we know. Or fairies, right? This is in Ireland, so it could be anything.
Yeah, well, either one, yes. All kinds of mythical creatures they got over there. But just where does this entity originate from? And then, they found the connection that somebody had died there, and his name was Johnny. And then, I'm still, throwing in the whole father thing because I feel like their activity escalated after that.
It did.
I'm not saying it's the father necessarily haunting them, or him alone at least, but it's something that heightened the emotions in the house, or the demon hurt him and now he's back as something else. We can make up all kinds of stories here. But I'm just saying, if something supernatural and evil rests just on this land, and then these people perish there, what does it do to their souls afterward? How does it distort everything?
Well, and just going back to something I mentioned earlier, the priest kind of did a one-on-one with Miss Murphy. And, it was just like, seriously, what is really, really going on here, right? And that's when she confided in the priest, and she said, I have a feeling that there is some sort of an attachment to my daughter, Annie. She couldn't really figure out why or what, but like I said earlier, Annie was one of the oldest of the children in the house. And if you kind of connect the dots back to like my story with Tina Resch, right? She had a lot of trauma in her life, a lot of emotional turmoil. I mean, hers was very dark, not saying that it wasn't dark for Annie. I mean, she was in a dark place with her dad passing away. She was in an area that had some kind of energies around it, sounded like it was bad, but it seems like something did kind of focus in on her and maybe heighten the activity in the house. So even if it wasn't the dad's spirit coming around and escalating the things that were going on, maybe it was him, though, knocking at the door. Maybe he was there trying to give them a sign, some way, whatever way that he could, to say, the fuck out of here. I see what you don't see, knocking at the door or whatever, or ripping the bed sheets off him. He's like, go. What else? And maybe it's not him that's like lifting the bed up or throwing cups or whatever, but maybe he's the one that's like, do something, leave. I would hope. I mean, that's what I would want. I would want a family member of mine to try and make contact with me because I'm into the paranormal and I want to know that everything is all right with them. And in this situation, if he was trying to communicate with them that things were bad and get out, because who knows with the Sherrys said that they stayed a night and then pieced out. What if they were the ones doing the satanic rituals in the house, drumming up the demons? And they're like, yeah, we can only stay one day. Fooled you fuckers.
It's weird how they pieced out in one night. Like, you have to be awful fearful of these things for you to be like, that's enough. I heard noises. Somebody knocked on the door. Nobody was there. I'm never going to do that again. That's extreme. I imagine that there are people like that, though, that would give up that quickly. That would be like, I nope the fuck out. I will not tolerate this shit. But, I'm not necessarily saying that well, yes, I guess I was implying that it was the dad. We don't know what it was.
We don't.
Only the psychic has ever seen something physical. Other than that, it's voices mimicking us children, possibly. Or maybe they are children you don't know because there's no history of like a passing of a child or anything. So you don't know what is haunting it. So it could be the dad, but it also could just be the emotions of losing someone that fed to this entity that was already there and that wasn't good. And this is stupid to bring up because it's just a TV show, but...
Why? I brought up a TV show.
But that Haunting of Hill House, they said the ultimate premise of that was to show the stages of grief. There was like 4 kids, and they had all been suffering from some kind of grief. And so they were seeing these ghosts or whatever, and it was representations of their emotions, basically. Like it gets into your head.
Yes.
And then this is how it comes out.
Yes.
Like it's your fears and your emotions, but becoming a real entity. Or feeding an entity.
I'm glad that you put it that way because that's why, in my mind, this was so like the Tina Resch story because she had those emotions bottled up inside her and then all of a sudden it just kind of came out and that's when all that shit happened. And this could have been the same thing with Annie if it was indeed, tied to her that she had these powers and she had no way of controlling her emotional state. And boom, that's when all the shit went really down south, I guess, for them. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen The Haunting of Hill House. But I do like that idea. And I think that for me, when I read those little pieces here and there, that's kind of how I felt. But there was so much that I read. Holy shit. Go back to that guy's book. When I was out thrift store shopping today, I was like, please let me find his book. Please let me find his book. That's what I wanted to take home. I wanted his book. And I'm like, Coffee Mug, Ireland. Damn it.
Close. Not exactly it.
I found the whole, I don't know. It was online, so I don't know how exact it was to the book, but it was deep into this story and it was so good. I'm like, yeah, this is a book that I need in my collection. So it was very much greatly researched by the townspeople that had, close dealings with this ghost. And then, this guy who's related to Winston Churchill, he's like, you know what? This whole estate thing that I'm dealing with is boring. Let me go and look into this. He talked to every priest that was involved. In his book, there were more priests. There were a couple of Father Coils. It wasn't just one. It's like, damn, everybody in the town got involved on this shit. So it's a very interesting story. It was one that I found a while ago and was really wanting to share. It just so happened that I finished The Exorcist and I was like, hey, you know what? That'd be a good story to share right now. So we will be posting pictures of this beautiful abandoned old house with pieces of the story as I know it now on our Instagram Instagram. That is COTN_paranormal. And on Twitter and Facebook as COTN Paranormal. We'll also share a link to the show that I mentioned and any other goodies that we happen to find. If you have a story about the Cooneen ghost or an Irish ghost story that you would like to share with us, want to talk about Game of Thrones or Peaky Blinders?
I could do that all day.
I'm saying shit. Write to us. We are all ears. Drop us an email at creaturesofthenight@gmail.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe our podcast or find us on YouTube under the same name, COTN Paranormal. And while we really can't help with performing any exorcisms, we do have some pretty unique spiritual products in our store that you can buy. We even have a spiritual aromatherapy balm that is infused with the specific essential oils blended to aid you in dealing with negative entities. You can rub the balm on your pressure points for personal protection, and you can even rub a little bit along the door frames to keep out bad shit. Look, we cannot guarantee a full-on demon removal service here, but for those of you like us that are going into or wanting to anyways into these legendary locations like the Cooneen Ghost House and you're attempting to communicate with the other side, it's best that you take the time to prepare yourself because you never know what you might open yourself up to and you don't want that shit to come home with you. Find our shop on Etsy as The Spirit Emporium. Everywhere else, it's Creatures of the Night Paranormal. You know how we do it. Multiple names, multiple different ways to find us. But I did happen to do a search. I don't know what I was searching for. Creatures of the Night something. And nothing from Kiss came up that time. It was all our stuff.
Oh my God.
Like, yes.
We're famous.
We're famous. I was like, all of these searches, not a single one of them was Kiss. Holy shit.
We have surpassed Kiss. That's amazing.
That's amazing. That's our next t-shirt. We're bigger than Kiss.
That's insane. I love
funny?
this story so much. Thank you so much for doing this. Gosh, I can't get enough of it.
I know. I knew you'd like it. I just wish that I could throw in, fairies or something else for you, but...
Well, you don't know what is causing all that. It could be multiple fairies. That's how they're knocking on all the windows.
The throwing of the rocks, I thought, was actually particularly different because not one single time during the story of the poltergeist from anybody that was living there did anybody mention any throwing of the rocks. So that could be something else.
Yeah. Like a whole fairy army all around. There are no demons with octopus arms. I mean, like...
No, not that we know of. Not yet, but...
No, not yet.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. And thank you all for listening. That's all I got.
All right. Bye.
Goodbye.